I spent 17 years in the Royal Marines and I learned a great deal in that period. To be clear, I don't claim to have had some of the seminal experiences that some of my colleagues did. And after I retired, those following in my footsteps, I think, had far harder and more demanding times, particularly in Afghanistan. Nevertheless, I offer three things that struck me then and have informed my subsequent 31 years of interacting with organizations in many countries and diverse industries. The first is the burden of responsibility often rests on the shoulders of one person. But that doesn't mean that they have to work out everything by themselves. Make sure you've got good people around you, particularly people who have different experiences to yourself. I remember when I learned about digging a snow hole. I shared this with someone who was more junior to me in terms of rank, but far more experienced than me and actually an awful lot stronger physically. He taught me how important it is when you're in the Arctic to create spaces where you can recover and also be comfortable when the weather is very inclement. I remember him saying to me, "Any old fool can be uncomfortable." There were other people on the same exercise who didn't take long to dig their snow holes, and they came out the next morning in the freezing weather, soaking wet, because they hadn't taken the time to dig wide enough and deep enough. Ours was a little bit like a mansion, and although we worked harder and longer to dig it, we got far more sleep and came out much fresher with dry clothes in the next morning. So surround yourself with people who have different experience to yourself and be willing to be vulnerable to share what you don't know to enroll the assembled wisdom. Concealing things you're unsure about can get you into a lot of trouble. But remember that just sharing you don't know what you're doing can really reduce morale and cause people to be far less inclined to follow your lead. It's the difference between sharing with empowerment and as a victim. Another thing I learned was something that many teachers have experienced, which is you tend to get the behavior that you expect in people. So if you expect bad behavior, that's what you get. If you expect a poor standard of work from your employees, they'll tend to give you that. But if you instill in them a sense that you trust and have confidence in them, they rise to your positive expectation. Early in my career, I had a young Marine in my troop who was a real problem. His discipline was poor, his behavior was poor, but I saw in him potential. I persuaded my boss to promote him, and contrary to many people's expectations, he rose to the challenge and his behavior improved immeasurably. My expectations were what counted there. It started him off on a completely different and more positive direction in his life. A third thing I learned about leadership is you can't expect good behavior from your people if you're not behaving well yourself. I haven't seen this often, but it's very stark when it occurs. When someone is given authority and responds by misusing it, then they have no right to expect good behavior from the people for whom they're responsible. The more senior we get in organizations, the more we are looked to as role models. I've seen good leaders and I've seen bad leaders, but when you have a good leader and they're a good role model, then the willingness of people to follow them and do their bidding increases exponentially. One colonel I worked for brought humility and great judgment to his office and created an environment of trust, loyalty, and professionalism, which I shall never forget. I will always have respect and gratitude for the gifts he gave me by the examples he set. So I have a question for you. We're creating a new leadership program at the moment. So what are the skills that you feel we should be advocating and teaching to help people lead in the challenging times we now face? Please let me know in the comments below. And while you're about it, subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can stay in touch. My name is Thom Dennis. I'm the CEO of Serenity in Leadership, and I'll see you next time.